Alright, gotta look good. Alright. Hair's not good yet. Oh my god. Oh no. Alright, we're good. Yo guys, what's up and welcome to another replay analysis video with me, ViBE. And today we have Plasmid once again for the three-peat of analysis. Now, Plasmid can't get enough. He loves analysis. And Plasmid, yo, I appreciate it, man. Let's jump right into this. We got a ZvT. This is diamond level ZvT. Oh my god. Get excited. He's playing Flash. Uziism. Uism. Flashuism. I said it wrong the first time. It's Flashuism. He's studying under God himself. Okay? So this guy must be good. We'll see how this game goes. If you guys don't know how these work, it's a... Basically, I analyzed the person's play. Which today we're doing Plasmid. And I'll be complimenting or commentating on things that I think he does well. And complimenting things that he does well. And then I'll be suggesting or maybe offering advice to things I think he could do better. And, you know, just offering ways to help him improve his play overall. And I'll break it down in a pretty... I'll try to be pretty in-depth about it. But I'll also try to be pretty... I'll explain quite a bit, so it helps a lot of people that are maybe in a lower league. But at the same time, it still offers advice for people who might even be in something like GM with high-level advice. High-level, like, strategy, theory, stuff like that. So far, we have a 17, 18, 17, it looks like. So it's hatch gas pool, very standard. This is what I would call a branch build. It is it's a macro opener that can branch into anything you want. It could be a mid-game all-in, a mid-game timing, a mid-game pressure, mid-game harass, mid-game pure greed. Seriously, like any style you want, it could go into that. Alright, so we're seeing the Overlord scout right now. Second Overlord is going a bit out. I'm going to pause really quick. We've talked about this before. Just it's something I do think is important. I would always recommend leaving the Overlord at the natural because it helps spot for any type of a proxy that could be happening. Like when this hatchery finishes, if there was already like 2 bunkers here that were halfway done, that would suck. It would be terrible. It would not be good for you. So it would just make it a lot harder to deal with that, you know? Like it's not something you can react to properly anymore. I always advise people to send the Overlord away from their natural at like when the natural is like 90% of the way done, because then your Overlord still will be seeing as it starts to fly away. And you'll be totally fine from any types of proxies in terms of being surprised by it. Anyways, moving on. We have a Reaper first, which I like that you have Lings scouting, or Lings defending rather. And then you've scouted a reactored barracks. What I would do if I were you right now, so I did keep the OV there until the net was almost done. Hold on. Let's go back and check it out. So right now, you can see like this, okay. Okay. I didn't see the SCV. That looks more standard. Okay, I don't mind what you did there. Your Overlord, though, this is one thing I'll say. This is something I'm going to critique you a little bit on. I think the Overlord, you did catch the SCV this time, and you paid attention to it, and you saw it, which is nice. But there are random, seriously, like really weird random things your opponents can do and take advantage of you if you have your Overlord this far up. Like if you were playing an opponent that was really good, okay? We're talking about he's just really good. And he's really like sneaky and he wants to do some sneaky shit. If your Overlord scouts okay, there's some things that can happen here, okay? One would be if let's say you see an SCV, all right? The SCV runs this way, it runs up. And then you're like, "Oh, look, the Overlord's following the SCV," and then another SCV comes from the bottom and builds a bunker right here. That's one thing that can happen. Another thing that could happen is this guy could actually SCV stack his, like, it's probably not going to happen, but it could. Just letting you know, there's a 1 in a million game where this could happen, and the Overlord placement is going to fuck you over on that. Another thing he could do is he could have 2 SCVs mineral walked in to look like one, and he could literally mine into your base and then he can rip one off in the fog and build a bunker. Like, it's probably not going to happen. Probably won't happen. But because your Overlord is way out here, this is also really bad against Protoss, because if the Protoss were to do something like have a probe run here, and he builds a pylon, and then he runs down and keeps going, and it looks like he's still going to scout your base. But while he's scouting your base, what looks like he's scouting, there's a pylon going up right now. And then he goes right back down to your natural when the pylon's done. And then by the time you go, oh shit, like he's actually starting to build cannons, the pylon's done already, and now he can actually build a wall around cannons. Things like that. That's why I don't want you to have your Overlord so far out. I would recommend having your Overlord a bit closer to your natural. You did see the SCV run away, which it looks like it's fine. So I'm not going to get on you too much about it, but just keep that in mind. You should what I want you to do, this is what I generally want, is I want you to have vision of most of your natural. Like, I want the Overlord to be like here, so you see that. That way there's no random stupid all-in stuff that you'll be like, what? How did he do that? Oh my god, he ran a second SCV in, or a probe in, and I didn't notice it. Like, I want you to have the Overlord there, scouting the green box right now. And then as soon as your natural is like where it is now, when it's like 70 to 80% of the way done, then you can send it out. Because there's not going to be any random... Because right now, if there was something back here, you would have no idea. If he would have done some weird technique that I just like talked about earlier, where he has like 2 SCVs and or whatever, you know what I'm talking about. It makes your it takes away any possibility of random all-in crap that can happen. That's what I would recommend. That's what the point I'm trying to make here, I guess. All right, we'll speed it up back to where we just were. All right, so now with this Overlord, the way this map works. And the fact that you see a reactored barracks, I like that you scouted a bit further up to see if this guy is building a factory or not right next to the barracks, and you don't see one right now. So it looks like he's gonna make Marines. You have 2 options right now to do something with your Overlord, and because you have a second Overlord coming up to the north side of the base, you always want your Overlords to kind of go opposites. If this Overlord was actually coming around to the bottom to go to like this cliff right here, then this Overlord, I would want it to go up. Just make them go opposite for wherever they're going. So this is what I would recommend you do. This Overlord, since you've seen a barracks with a reactor on it, and it looks like there's no factory, I would send this Overlord now to the right over here and see if he has a forward frontal natural. Probably doesn't. Most Terrans don't do that. But as soon as you see he's got nothing here, by that point he will have Marines out if he's going to make Marines. Then you could just kind of tuck this Overlord back here onto the cliff, which will give you vision of when he finally does take this base, and also if he has units like, if you had an Overlord like right here, it'll see up to like right there. So you would see if he has units kind of just sitting in the front of his base as well, or if he possibly doesn't move out to your base. Second Overlord, I would want it to wrap into his base like you've kind of done, and you're going to spot for a natural and, you know, see if he's got more things going on. It's kind of up to you how you want to do it. Because part of me also is like, I'm thinking to myself in my head right now, I'm like, part of me would also want to just take one peek back at this barracks too, really quickly, like right now, because I would probably do it one time, just one time. I didn't say this before, but it's important. This is actually what I would do. Everything I said where I would scout the natural and go up here is what I would do, but I would probably poke back into his base just one time really fast. Just once. Just to make sure this barracks is going, it's like flashing lights, to make sure he's actually making Marines. And by the time this barracks reactor was, because you didn't see the reactor finish yet, so you don't know 100% sure if he's going to leave the reactor on the barracks. Maybe there was a factory right there and he's going to rotate it. You don't know that for sure yet. So just poking in one more time to see if it was actually building Marines would be nice. Either way though, as long as you have some type of a follow-up scout relatively soon, you'll be okay. Because right now his build could be a lot of things. His build could be most likely it'll be like a 2-1-1. It could be a 1-1-1 with like a mixture between some Marines, some Hellions, and like a medevac, and he could do like a Hellbat timing. It could be what I talked about earlier, where he just rotates off a factory a little bit further out. There are like a few different builds it still could be. You don't know for sure. Yeah. Uh, your information is okay. I like that you're scouting it again, and you do see. Okay, he's making Marines. That's good. You could have scouted in a little bit sooner, because the reactor was only like 10 seconds away from being done the first time when you left, and there was about like a good 30 to 40 seconds that went by before you scouted it again. Just keep that in mind. That's a big thing. You want to know if they keep what add-on is on what, and if it's going to actually start producing units or not. You did eventually check it back again, which is great. I love that. It's super important to do that. So now you do know he's going to be using some type of a marine composition, because if he's going to be making Marines, and not only, and not just that, he's going to be making Marines on a reactor. It's more common that it's going to be something Marine heavy. It doesn't guarantee that it's going to be just like a Marine stim pack timing, which is what it is going to be. I'll actually take the production tab off. So again, I don't like having the production tab on because it's like people think I'm going to probably be cheating by like being like, oh, ViBE, but you're just reading the production tab. No, I'll you know, what I'd like to do is I like to watch from his perspective and just give you like what I would think would happen and things you got to keep in mind and just think about when you're scouting someone. So this could be a stim pack timing, but it also still could be a reactor on a factory. It could be just like a 1-1-1 build is what I'm trying to say. It could be something with Marine Hellion. It could be something even with like Marine Widowmine. It could be something like that. Or it could even be like 3 barracks. You never know. It's still a lot of things it could be. And we are getting a follow-up scout here to get more intel here. But, yeah. Just knowing what reactor is on what production, barracks as to reactor, knowing that it's going to stay on that is huge info early. And we see a natural, which means you're not getting all in. It's not going to be some like weird 5 racks. And now you see 6 Marines, or it's 7 Marines. It's a lot of Marines. And also the fact that it's an odd number, if you actually pay attention to things like this, the fact that you also see an odd number guarantees that there is another barracks. Because he can only make Marines 2 at a time with his reacted barracks. So you can't make Marines 3 at a time. And 7 Marines is also too many to have off of this one barracks this fast, because he made a Reaper, then a Reactor, and then he started making Marines. It's very unlikely that he's going to have 8 Marines just off that one barracks this fast. Most likely. It's close. But, never mind, you even saw the barracks. I didn't even see you saw the barracks. You just saw the barracks as well. So you have full info as to what's going on. If I was in this position and I saw a bunch of Marines like this, there's no Hellion that you saw in his base or anything, but it's just a lot of Marines, and you see a starport. This is the big one. You see a starport that's just about done. This starport timing is lined up to where if there was a reactor on this factory and he swapped this starport and this factory, he could make 2 medevacs and move out of his base by about 445 to 450. And it looks like it's a 2-1-1. That's what I would assume from this. A 2-1-1 stim pack medevac drop. And we'll see if there is a reactor here. There is. So he's going to swap it, and he's going to make 2 medevacs. A good way to deal with this is if I was in this position again on this map, and I'm like, okay, he's going 2-1-1. Immediately, I would go, okay, now I need to have airspace coverage and creep coverage. My first creep tumor would go where yours is. That's nice. But this map has a specific thing about it that's going to fuck you up if this guy abuses it. And it's this location right here. This location is super abusive because he can actually set, like in the future, he can set tanks up and things like that. And a 2-1-1 could easily go into a tank build, a bio tank build. He can set tanks up on the low ground here and then just elevator up and down. And it will make it will make this position really hard for you to deal with. So if I was going against a 2-1-1, first things first, have at least 1, maybe 2 overlords. 1 here, or just 1 here. It's fine. And then you want to have like 2 to 3 overlords down here. 1 here, and like 1 over here. You need to really know where his medevacs are before they attack you. Because if you, the one con, or the one thing that sucks really bad for Zerg against a 2-1-1 is if you allow the medevacs to fully drop their Marines and then you try to engage them. Because the thing about it, the way a medevac works is, if you attack a Marine as it's dropping out of medevacs, so let's say your Lings get to his medevacs by the time he has 2 Marines on the ground and he has to drop the other 6. His medevacs don't heal when they're dropping. They cannot heal Marines while they are in the process of dropping Marines 1 by 1. So you eliminate the fact that he can heal his Marines, and you can probably pick off a good amount of them And on top of that, if you get full surrounds on new Marines that are dropping over and over, it's going to give you more surface area and more damage before. Like, it's going to reduce the amount of damage he can do, too. Like, he's going to be killing things slower while you're doing that. So, it's really important to not allow him to be blind, like in a blind spot of your base and drop Marines for free. That's what you don't want to happen. So again, having Overlord spread is #1 most important thing. #2 is creep spread, because it makes not only your lings faster at getting around to wherever you want them to go, but it makes you actually be able to use your queens to push the medevacs out of your base, or best case scenario, kill the medevacs. So first creep tumor going this way. I would want you to spread it further down towards that follow-up timing that could be a problem here on this map, which is tanks and stuff. So first creep tumor should go this way. Just have it go this way. Second tumor from this queen, it should be going right here and going into your main and down towards your natural. You could even, at some point in the game later on, you could have the creep tumor be like right here. So it could spread between all your, the inside of your base, and then you could spread one tumor there. And by the time the tumor gets here, from here to here, this tumor will have been spread out to this way, and you can actually jump this tumor down to the low ground and keep spreading it out and around down this way and have it go that way. So it can still be active even though it goes into your base. You can just jump it over the airspace. And then finally, the last thing is you can saturate 2 mineral lines, maybe even like 2 1/3, but like 16, 16, and like 6 or so, 5 or 6 drones on your third base for minerals, and then you need to make lings. You need to make lings, especially if you do not have a roach warren or a banding nest, which is totally fine. You can get away with that, but you need to have at least like 30 to 40 lings if you're not going to use banes or roaches by the time the medevacs get here, because it gives you the option to having a situation where just in case you fucked up and you didn't actually get on the medevacs before they dropped all the Marines, and now you're like, oh god, now 16 Marines are out. If you have like 40 lings and like 3 queens, 3 queens shooting the medevacs and like 40 lings getting on the Marines, you have a much higher chance of pushing that back as long as you engage at, like, you know, the queens and lings engage together. You have a really high chance of pushing that away without dying and taking too much damage. And the final thing you can do, this is something I would not recommend for lower level players, but this is higher level players. I'm gonna pause it one more time. Higher level players, you could actually do something like this. This is what I do in my games, but do not do this if you don't have a lot of APM and you're like struggling just to get the build going yourself. But if you do, all you got to do against someone who you know is going to go 2-1-1 is you make you take like a Zanaga tower if the map offers it, but even if the map doesn't, you just look at the close part of the map to his base, which is this line right here. Look at where the mini map is over on the left side of the screen down here. This part of the base, right, or this part of the map right here, from his like 5th base to his other 5th base, this line, you can spread out like 9 zerglings, like ling, 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 and like a ling. You spread out like 9 zerglings in a line. And you can do it by like literally shift click, shift click, shift click. Just send 9 lings out. And then you can even just rebind the ling group to what it is now. And you just wait until one of these lings spots 2 medevacs flying by them. And then you could literally hit select all army and rebind them into your group, so you don't have to go physically grab every single one of them, because you know you want them all in your group anyways. As soon as you spot medevacs coming by, you just select all army, rebind it, and then follow the medevacs wherever they go. And zone them out as you see them. And you gotta use your brain too to be like, okay, if I'm following the medevacs here, and he's gonna fly right here, I gotta, instead of just chasing him right to this cliff and then running all the way around, maybe I split some of my lings to go to where he could go and where he currently is. And if he commits to one, he'll be dropping into my lings with full surrounds immediately. Same thing as if you were to go into your main, you would split up like half your lings go here and half your lings go back into the main, etc., etc., etc. Stuff like that. It makes it really easy to deny and shut down the initial Hellion or the initial medevac drop. And the faster you shut that down by either killing him entirely or making him turn around, it gives you time to prepare things like your Evo Chamber upgrades, your future tech, which is probably going to be Baneling Nest, and also maybe even make more drones and like a macro hatch or something. And every single second that goes by where your creep gets further, it makes it easier to defend as well because you have more vision and more mobility. But yeah. Spotting and zoning the medevac drops is crucial. It is like the #1 key to fighting this build. That's what you have to do. So right now, the one thing that I would say you're a little bit down on is your vision. You have a little bit of blind spots in your base. Like, if this guy... Your lings are here, which is nice. They're in the center of your base. But the problem with this is if this guy were to have 2 medevacs, like, flying right here, right now. Like, he's out of vision of your Overlord, okay? He came down here, and he's flying in here. And he's going to drop, like, right here on this cliffside. By the time your lings... If you were to react the second he starts dropping Marines, if your lings were to react and run at him, he would already have like 8 Marines on the ground. Like 4 Marines or maybe even 5 Marines out of each medevac. Because it drops pretty fucking fast. It drops like 2 Marines a second, pretty much. So if your lings were to run here to here, he would already have a bunch of, like 2/3 of the medevacs already unloaded. And your lings would start actually attacking the Marines at that point. But then if he stimpacked against a wall, there's a very good chance he could actually kill more lings than what he's going to lose. So he'll get like a better trade. So again, having your lings, having vision to make your lings get in position right away before he's there is crucial. You have spores here. Spores are a bit early. You can assume he's going to drop here, but all these spores really did is that it slows you down at this point in the game. Because notice how he's not even committing to it. He's actually dropped outside, and he's just zoning your units out front. And so far you've lost, I think, like, maybe an Overlord and some Lings or something. I don't know. You've lost a little bit. It's okay. You're going to lose a little bit here and there. But the key is to zone and, you know, keep your economy alive. Because you guaranteed will have more economy at this point with 3 base, which you do. So you can afford to take a little bit of losses. It's okay. Okay, so you pushed him away. It's nice. He committed to creep. He did kill a lot of creep timers, so he reset a little bit of time for you in terms of the creep. Right now, what you could do is you could actually run this queen to the edge of your creep and plant it as far out as possible, so you lose as little time as possible about respreading. Because if you were to, like, let's just say, put a creep timber there again and just wait, all your creep would recede back to where this creep timber is again. So it just wastes like a full minute of time. Yeah, retaking the creep is very important. So this is the one thing about Terran that you really it's distracting. But if you guys have ever listened to me talk about how to macro properly and stuff like that, where it's like you get your hands in a rhythm where you do things like you just, let's say your hatcheries are on his hatcheries on hotkey 1. They're on number 1. So he would be going 1 SD, 1 SD, 1 SD. Whenever he's just doing nothing. Instead of doing nothing, he's hitting 1 SD, 1 SD, 1 SD to spin his larva. And that, like, you just get in a habit of, you hit those buttons on your keyboard, even though you're not even thinking about doing it. You're thinking about, like, where are the medevacs, where are the medevacs? But you're still going, like, hitting the buttons while you're thinking about other stuff. And then you can focus on, if you see the medevacs do something, like you're paying attention to the medevacs, and you're going, oh, look, he's loading up, and he's going to come into my main. You can just run. Running at the medevacs before they've unloaded is very important, because if you engage these Marines once they're all down and then he stims, guaranteed every single time he's going to get a better trade than you. Because all the Terran has to do, if you allow them to unload all their Marines, and then now the medevacs are waiting to heal Marines, if you run at him then and he stimpacks, he can kill like however many Marines he has. He can kill that many Zerglings, most likely, and then load up the medevacs and not even lose a Marine. So if he has 10 Marines, he could probably stimpack and kill like 10 Zerglings as your Lings are engaging, especially if he's like against a wall. And by the time he kills 10 Marines, he can load up medevacs and not have lost a single Marine. Unload somewhere else out of your base, heal them up, do it again. If he has 16 Marines, he could most likely kill like 16 Lings without losing a single Marine. Because Marines have hit scan. They're very intelligent AI with how they kill Zerglings, how they kill units in general. They don't waste damage. And they can Lings are pretty squishy. They die pretty fast. So you got to keep that in mind. That's it's always going to be a bad trade for you if you engage Marines after they've dropped. like this. Well, just look at how many Lings die and how many Marines die here. Okay, he got scared and he loaded right away. He actually, and then he just lost the Marine. I don't know why he shot the Lings if he was going to do that. It's crazy. Either way, though, it's important to get on the Marines, or get under the medevacs before the Marines drop. That's the #1 way you zone this out, cost efficiently as Zerg. And creep is crucial. Creep is crucial. So now behind this, going up against what you're fighting right now, getting 1-1 is super important, which is, you know, what you're starting to do now. You've got your weapons going, and then getting your whatever it's called, your other upgrades are important. And for you right now, you have a lot of minerals at the moment. This is actually what I'm going to recommend for you, Plasmid, because everything I'm telling you to do is it's more multitask intensive, and it's easier said than done. Okay, so here's what I'm going to recommend you do. This is going to become your new build, and seriously do this. This is going to help you out so much in the future. I want you to do what you did this game, similar to what you did, where you made you know, like 2.5 to 2 2/3, or sorry, 2 1/3 to 2.5 mineral line saturation. So it's 16, 16, and somewhere between like 6 to 8 drones. Okay, on a third base. So you have a really healthy mining income, and this is if you scout like 2-1-1, or if you're ever going to do a build that is Lingbane Hydra focused. What I want you to do once you have this many, you know, those drones, is you'll make Lings to keep yourself alive, which is what you made here. But then as soon as you start making drones on your third, so as soon as you go beyond 6 to 8 drones, take a macro hatch immediately in your main. Even if you have to save up a little bit of like 5 seconds of time to build the macro hatch, do it. Save up some money if you don't already have it, and build 1 macro hatch as soon as you start saturating the rest of your third base. Then you're going to take all your gases and all your, you know, all your tech and stuff like that. As soon as you're fully saturated on 3 bases, you go immediately from 2 gases to 6 gases right away. And then you try to ideally make new drones to saturate those gases rather than pulling drones off and having undersaturated mineral lines. So you'll make new drones to saturate all those gases. And then as soon as you take your 4th base, as soon as you start a 4th base, you take a 2nd macro hatch somewhere in your main. So you're going to be going 2 macro hatches in your main. And the timing is the 1st macro hatch is thrown down as soon as you start saturating the rest of your third, and the 2nd macro hatch goes down as soon as you start a 4th base. And what this is going to do is it's going to give you so much more free larva that is going to just give you a massive surge of production for Lings. And it's going to help you, like your supply right now could be like 140 or like 130 in just Ling. It's just going to help you spend your money and give you more units faster. And then if you have, you know, injecting problems, let's just say hypothetically right now you have 100 energy on all of your queens. You could just hold shift and inject your main, natural, and your main and your 2 macro hatches in your main. And then go to your natural and inject, go to your third inject. But now your natural and your third queen could have, let's say, 100 energy as well. You can just rotate a queen from your natural to your main. Just swap them. So the queen in your main that just injected 3 hatcheries now goes to the natural, and the queen in the natural that's now coming to the main has a lot of energy, and now it inject. And then now you look at your third, and you go, oh, look, my third queen has a lot of energy, and now my new main queen has none, really. Swap them again. Swap those queens. Now your new queen with a lot of energy, inject. You can spend your energy a lot more efficiently, even if you're messing up your macro a little bit, where you can just have shitloads of larvae, even if you're kind of stalling out on your macro here and there, because you're creating a way to fix that. And then yeah, it'll help you out a lot as to just having the units you need and being able to spend your money. And then if you're going to go up against, let's say, Bio, the perfect place I would say to stop your economy would be like 3.5 bases of economy. So you're going to have a fully saturated main, fully saturated main natural third, and gases included, which is going to put you around like 66 drones. But I don't want you to go all the way up to like 88 drones. I would say go to like 80 instead of 88, which would mean you'd have like half a mineral line saturated on your 4th base and also gas is saturated. So what's going to happen is by the time you actually start saturating your 4th base, your main will most likely get ready to start mining out. You notice these patches are getting low. You can transfer 8 drones from your main to your 4th and maintain 16 drones on your 4th. And as soon as you do something like take your 4th base and saturate it, you can do something like take a 5th base. And you can do the exact same thing, not make new drones, but as soon as your natural and your 3rd start mining out as well, you send drones there. Etc, etc, etc. You just, instead of keeping droning at that point, you just keep rotating drones to new bases and try to maintain around 80 drones. 80 drones is like creme de la creme drones. Okay, it's good. It's good drone amount against bio when you're going for something like Ling Bane and Hydra. And then from here, it would just be once you have that 80, once you have like 3 base saturation, you're gonna need to make a little bit of an army. Like a decent amount. We're talking like 30 supply worth, or maybe around there, depending on if your opponent does or does not take a 3rd base. If they do take a 3rd base, you could probably get away with it and go for like a little bit of a 4th saturation. If they don't take a 3rd base, you do not saturate a 4th base at all. Keep that in mind. That is the 2 rules of Zerg. Stay 1 base up, okay? Until you're done saturating, which is 80 drones, and then it doesn't matter at that point. You just then expand to keep saturation going and just make army the whole time. So I like that you scouted the 3rd. It's important. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Yeah, it's a big deal. Good shit. So right now I would say your creep spread is suffering a bit. A big thing to always keep in mind is try to make a mental note to yourself to always retake your creep if the Terran scans and kills it. Your creep right now could honestly, if you were keeping on top of it, it could be like out to here right now. It could be much further out, which would give you, you know, every Zerg knows this feeling. The better your creep is, the more safe you feel in the game, because you see everything before it hits you sooner. And it also makes your army more cost efficient at engaging your opponent. So always keep that in the back of your mind. If you get scanned and the creep gets killed, you can push him away, but as soon as you do, try to retake your creep before it dissipates. Yeah, like, dude, you know how to make an economy relatively quickly, which is why you have so much money. You're giving yourself, like, masters to GM level macro in terms of generating money, but then you know, you are a diamond player, which is totally fine, but you're spending your income that you're giving yourself like a lower level player. If you did that macro thing I talked about earlier, it's going to give you, you're going to just be like, holy shit, I have, like, such a big army every time I fight my opponent. It's crazy. It's crazy. Because your ling ball could be like 3 times the size it is right now. Or more. Because you've given yourself so much damn money. Now, another thing to just keep your build rolling here, to keep it, you know, going well, is as soon as you start 2-2, the second you start 2-2 upgrades, try to remember that's also the time that you should be starting infestation pit, and then you have to. So you're doing the infestation pit at a good time. You're ready to do 2-2, and now you're starting an infestation pit. You're just not really. Your upgrades have been a little stalled here and there. You're preoccupied, which is it's fine. But yeah, that is the timing to start 2-2. Is 2-2 and infestation pit at the same time, because what happens is, if you remember to make a hive when the infestation pit is done, 2-2 is going to be finishing at the same time as the hive is going to be finishing, and then you can go 3-3 immediately. This is not the right time to attack, I would say. I know you just want to fight. I'm going to pause it really quickly, okay? So, here's why I'm saying this is not the right time to take a fight. For one, you have not scouted his potential expansions. He could, for all you know, he could have a base right here. And if you, let's say he's like, oh shit, I'm about to be attacked right now. And he pushes forward like this for a second, but he realizes, okay, you got Banes, I'm going to back up. And as he backs up, he's got more Marines here and Medivacs or whatever. And he's got like 2 tanks. 2 tanks up here and like a tank back here or something. He's got something that's going to kill your army. All you're going to do right now is throw away an army when you're not ready to take an attack yet. The bigger things you need to do right now is get your money under control and scout and see if this guy is expanding further. Because if you can actually kill his... Here's the thing. Here's how it works. You can actually win a game by never attacking your opponent's current base. It's very realistic. Like if you know your opponent's already on 3rd base, a 3 base setup. He's been on 3 bases for like 4 minutes now. He took a 3rd a long time ago and you scouted it, which was great. But if you, from this point on, never, like you keep winning fights against the Terran and you never let him take a 4th base. Every time he tries to take a 4th base, you break it at that point. Or you just never let him take one. Or maybe he never tries to take one. And he just runs out of money on 3 bases. And once he's out of money, then he tries to lift off his command centers and float somewhere else. If you just never let him take a 4th base, you're going to win the game anyways. Because if you defend locations that are harder for him to set up, because he's not able to use his own cliff and base in SimCity, your army will be more efficient at fighting it. So, again, right now, what you should be doing is, number 1, focusing on injecting, getting your money under control, saturating your bases properly, first of all. This is oversaturated. This is undersaturated by 1. This is undersaturated by 5. This is undersaturated by 7. Like you're focusing on things that are going to make the game bad for you in the future. Like if you throw this army away, what's going to happen? Like you might do a little bit of damage, sure. But if this whole army dies, what do you have to do? You got to remake it. You're going to have to remake it. And if while you're attacking him, if you haven't been doing anything like macroing and injecting and spreading creep, you're going to, for one, you're going to be blind as to where he could be setting up a future counterattack against you. And if you haven't been injecting properly, you're going to be, your reinforcing army when you throw this one away is going to be it's going to be about the same size, if not maybe smaller. And then you're going to be in a position where your opponent attacks you and you still have 2,000 minerals in the bank and he's overpowering you and killing your army in little trickly amounts. And it's going to be really just, a shitty fight for you. It's going to be bad. So you're taking, right now, you're getting ahead of yourself because you want to fight over here. You're thinking that you should attack. You really shouldn't. You should just control the map right now. You should only really attack when you have like this, when you know you have this like massive lead. And right now, I would not say you do, because even though you're winning the game in terms of fights so far, you still have potentially like 80 supply of money in the bank. Like, okay, we'll watch it one more time. Again, I don't think you should take this fight. Even though this guy overstims his ass off, I still don't think you should take this fight. And there's why. You just threw an army away, and you didn't set up the game for yourself in the future. And now you're in a position where you just lost your army, and now you're trickling your army into him in little bits. Now we're going to see really quickly if this guy has a 4th base. He does not have a 4th base. So that's good for you that he does not have a 4th base, at a 4th yet. But if this Terran player was a Terran player who did have a 4th base, then I would say 100% you just missed an opportunity to attack somewhere that is more important than attacking into his tank line in the front of his base. And time is a resource that a lot of people don't pay attention to in StarCraft. Like, most people think, okay, what are the resources in StarCraft? You got minerals, you got gas, and you also have supply, I guess. Those are the 3 things you need to manage. But time is another resource that is majorly important. And right now, what you just did to yourself is you just wasted about a full minute of time, because you just threw an army away in a situation that was not necessary, That was not the most important thing to be doing at this point in the game. And in doing that attack, what you just did, what was the outcome? You attacked him. He had to set up defensively. He killed your army. You might have killed a few Marines, but you lost probably more than it was worth, because you lost Banelings, which are gas. You lost Hydras, which are gas, and you lost a fair amount of Zerglings, which is minerals. He lost some Marines, and that's it. He lost 0 tanks. He lost 0 medevacs. Like that is time that is not in your favor now, because what he just did is he just reset your army a little bit, which means that if you remake that exact same army, now the hive tech transitions for yourself are going to be pushed back further into the game, and his tank count now has been built up to what, like 3 tanks, let's say, over the last 90 seconds, and now he still has them, so he can now be, next time he fights you, he might be at 6 tanks, which is going to be even more efficient than 3 tanks that he had this time. And it could be an even worse fight for you overall. So you've just wasted a resource of time, like I was saying a second ago. It's huge. It's important. And also, not only that, there are things that are outside of this, like macro-wise and mechanics-wise, that are important too. In doing that attack, you just prioritize that attack for about a full minute, where you set up over here, and you made more links come over here, and then you attacked him, and you had flood for a second, but then you fell back. And in doing that, your creep spread could have been spread more, like 4 times. I think it's like 12 seconds for a cooldown on a tumor now, or some shit like that. It's 11 seconds. So your creep tumors could have been spread 4 or 5 more times, realistically, throughout the whole thing. And you're not going to get perfect spread like this to this, or like this tumor to this tumor, or this edge of creep with 11 seconds. It spreads like 70% of the way to the end by 11 seconds if you do it right away. But still, your creep could have been like a full screen length to a screen and a half length further out than it is everywhere. And also, if you look at your injects, they could have been spent way better throughout that attack as well. Like your queens could have been, slamming out injects during a lot of things that could have been prioritized. Could have been prioritized a lot better than prioritizing on an attack that is not necessary right now. And also, you're still blind. It's a big thing too. Just keep in mind, this is a big rule of thumb, okay? If you have map control, you need to scout the potential expansions of your opponent every game. That is the #1 rule as Zerg when you have map control. Try to maintain your mechanics and your macro, but scout. See if your opponent is bigger than they should be. And if they are, punish it. That's when you punish it. Not break a turtle. In general. Because if you try to break the turtle, he's going to bite your finger off, You just lost like 2 fingers in this fight. Yo, thank you for the bits, by the way. The Wundini, or the Woodini.
That field's been mined out. Hope you have an expansion.
Alright, so you have 2-2 is a bit late. You started a bit late. It's okay though. At least you're doing it. But just try to keep that in mind. Every time you take it should be like a synergized thing. You go 1-1 before layer, which is fine, whatever. Then you go layer. But as soon as you start 2-2, that is when you also start Infestation Pit. They're paired things. And then 3-3 is just, 3-3. And then you're done. Once you have a hive, it's you can just do it. So you're winning these fights here and there because this guy, he's not taking the most intelligent fights himself. He's pushing when his army is small. Like he's being too aggressive, I would say. Like I feel like this guy has probably stunted his own macro by being overly aggressive. And I swear, I think this is the mistake that most players make that are not really high level, is they're too aggressive. You just get into this mindset where you really feel like you should be attacking. And like you could win so many games if you just calmly and patiently macro. And then let your opponent kill themselves. Because if your opponent is obsessed with attacking you and attacking you and attacking you and attacking you, can you imagine? I want you to picture something. Close your eyes really fast, okay? Let's say you both have 50 supply, and you collide, but he fights you on creep. So your 50 supply army beats his 50 supply army, and you have 10 supply left over. Okay? Now imagine, instead of building new units right then and launching a counterattack, imagine if you built new units and focused on spreading your creep a little bit further, so that the next time this guy decides to once again attack you, you have focused on defensively macroing, and he is overly aggressive. Now this time, instead of 50 supply versus 50 supply, it's now 80 supply versus a new 50 supply army for your opponent. And then the creep is like 20% further across the map than it was a second ago. So now you can take a fight even closer to his base than you were before, and your army is even bigger than it was before, which means you're going to kill him faster, which means instead of having like 10 supply left over, now you might have 40 supply left over. Because the more you have, the more DPS output you generate, which means you kill him quicker, which means less units die. And now, let's say you do it one more time. This guy, once again, is like, oh my god, I gotta regroup and attack again. And you do it again. You spend your creep, and again, like 20% further than it just was again a second ago. Now you're even closer to his base. And instead of now having an 80 supply versus a 50 supply army, now it's a 100 supply versus a 50 supply army. And you crush him even harder this time. And now your creep is like up to the front of his base at this point. Like you're getting really close. And now on top of that, you do now at this point launch an attack because you're maxed out. And all the units you now made because you have to remake something during the fight just happened. So now you're remaking supply to fill up back to 100. This whole army reinforces your main army really fast because your creep is already near his base at this point. And then you just like run him over because you have like 80 lings that are going to flood across the map. And they're just going to get into his base right away. Or something like that. Does that mean that is like the way to play against a Terran. That is how you want to ideally fight Terran if you're going to macro. You want to always take fights on creep. And you want to control the map. And once you have control of the map, then you launch a counterattack to kill your opponent. And it might seem confusing because a lot of players like to gauge their games off of pro gamers. And they're like, what? Well, this Zerg is really aggressive and that's how I should be, right? And the answer is no. Because a pro gamer is able to attack an opponent and simultaneously creep spread and simultaneously inject their hatcheries and not let their mechanics and their macro fall behind while they're being aggressive. That's why they're pro gamers. But if you're someone who's in a lower league at all, you're not ever going to be able to do that. Like you can try, but you're going to have hiccups all over the place. It's going to happen. So if you focus on the more important task than the less important task, you're going to have way more success overall throughout the game. And the more important task is keeping your production rolling because you are nowhere near maxing out, so you should not really ever, and you're nowhere near spending your money, so you should not ever think that you should launch counterattacks at this point. What he just did though was gave you map control. Well actually, your army's even losing this fight right now. I do think you could totally win this fight with reinforcements, but imagine if this was units. You should have enough right now to overpower the remainder of what he has if he doesn't parade push you. And I don't mind that you're being patient, because if he's not going to attack your hatchery and force you to fight him, you taking a few extra seconds to get some more units out is totally fine. I don't mind that you're waiting for just a second. The one thing you're going to be careful about, though, is if this guy parade pushes you, this push will get bigger and bigger. So you have to ask yourself, am I going to cut my losses? And am I going to evacuate this base and go somewhere else and reset up a new fight somewhere else? Or am I going to keep trying to attack into this? And with the way you're fighting this, I would say you should probably sacrifice this base. Because what's happening right now is you're being hesitant. You keep engaging the Marines, but every time you do that, you get shot by the tanks. And you're bleeding out Lings way faster than he's bleeding out Marines. So if you're ever going to be hesitant like this, and you're like, oh my god, I don't know how many tanks are up there, you're going to be waiting all day because you're going to keep making units and keep throwing them away. You should never feel like you can't transfer somewhere else. Like this base is even almost done right now. But it's got 3 seconds left. If you were to say, you know what, screw it. Let's just grab all the drones, go here, and take a new hatchery down here. Go somewhere else. What you could actually do then is you could run your army away. This hatchery will die, but it's, you know, it's fine. And you just make new banes and make more army somewhere where you can set up a new fight and defend a new base, rather than bleeding out on the cliffside over and over and over. It's always an option. Just keep that in mind. Because these tanks are ruining you. Like, how many kills do these tanks actually have right now? 17, 11, and 14. That is a shitload of kills on the tanks. You keep engaging and getting shot and then backing up. Like, the funny thing is this guy's actually not parade pushing you. If you would have just committed once, you would have beat this army. but the amount of times but you don't know that entirely because you're playing the game and you're in fog and there's also probably 10 things going through your mind right now. So you don't know for sure, and the one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to commit to an engage, lose it, and lose the game, which is totally fine. But if that's how you're going to play it, if you don't want to commit to it, just don't commit to it at all. Just go somewhere else. That's the better idea here for you. So again, this is not the time to attack. I hope you do not attack right now. What you should be doing right now in this game is you should be getting 3-3. You should be getting your creep going. Your creep spread. Your creep spread is super important because right now you're blind to like 60% of the map. And then you should be, I would say, sending like one Zergling like this down the map around the side, and then one Zergling up the map around the side. And having the Lings eventually stop here from the top one and here from the bottom one. The two bases closest to his base. Because you want to know if this guy has additional bases or not. I was stalling for ultras at this point. Okay. So I see that you're stalling for ultras. That's totally fine. But do you get what I'm talking about though? You actually lost so many units. You were making Lings and you were trying to get ultras, sure. But if your opponent parade pushed you, okay? You like, I'm trying to teach you ideas in ways that's not going to help you get 100 MMR higher and then you're going to stop again. It's ideas that are going to help you deal with Terrans that are going to inevitably be way better than the one you're playing right now, which is why I'm telling you things like this. But if this guy would have parade pushed you, the way you were microing that and going in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out, and getting shot by tanks over and over and over and over, if he parade pushed you, guaranteed, even if you get ultras out, you would have died. Because what you kept doing was you kept engaging, and then you ran away, and you let the tanks shoot one time. And the tanks go on cooldown when they shoot for like 2 seconds. Tanks are not fast attacking units, but they do a shitload of damage. But then you went in again, and you went out. And you did it I think 8 times. And you lost so many fucking larvae worth of Zerglings in doing that. That just because you get ultras, especially if you're under upgraded, which you are. You're not 3-3 right now at almost 14 minutes. Your 3-3 hasn't started yet. If this guy was 3-3 on Bio with Marauder Marine and tank, if you have no fodder, or if you have very little fodder, like just not many Lings are left, and you just make a bunch of ultras, and then now you remake new Lings, your army is overall small because you bled out so much. What will happen is your opponent could rip you apart, basically. Like he could just keep pressuring you, and you bleed out more and more and more and more. Just don't be afraid to transfer to a different base. The 100%. If you were going to commit to the fight with your early army and you were going to take the fight and win it, or take the fight in general, that's one way to do it. Otherwise, if your intention is to stall and wait, you would have actually saved more money if you would have let just the hatchery die. I'm not saying let all the drones die. That's ridiculous. Just grab the drones and send them somewhere else, and you're going to lose probably 200 minerals, okay? 200 minerals or so, and maybe 80 gas, just going from here to here, because you have to walk there. So you lose a little bit of resources in the time it takes to get there, and then you lose 300 minerals for the hatchery, because the hatchery is going to die. But instead what happened is the amount of Lings that bled out and the amount of Hydras that died, I would say probably 4 or 5 Hydras died, and maybe 40 Lings died or so, going in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. It's cheaper to just sack the base and go somewhere else. Maybe even more Lings died. I don't know. It was quite a few times going in and out of the tanks. It would just be more efficient for you to do that.
That mineral field's gone. Don't spend it all in one place. Our folks think too much. They're attacking your base.
Okay, so right now, you just won that fight. This guy pushed once again. This guy's this guy is super aggressive. He's super aggro. He pushed into a compromising position, and you just overpowered him, which is good for you. Great, it's a win-win right there. But again, right now, this is what I would say. At this point in the game, you don't actually know if this guy has additional bases or not. And just going straight into his base here, if that's what you do, is a mistake. Because we're 14 minutes into the game, and look at your main. Your main is almost mined out. It's very close to actually mining out entirely. Your natural and your third are getting lower. Like, they're getting relatively lower at this point. And you got to think about it like this. Like, the Terran is Terran. He's got mules. He's actually going to mine out his bases that he controls faster than you, because mules are additional mining over just SCVs. They'll mine out faster. So if you were to scout and kill a fourth base, because you once again now have control of the map, and at this point now you have good supply. So this supply is respectable. It's good enough to launch an assault at an expansion, especially since you just beat his army in the middle of the map. So killing a potential fourth base is key here. It's important, because if you were to do that, the game would effectively be over. But the one thing you can do that's a mistake is, let's say he has this fourth, and you just commit into his third base again, which is like a SimCity choke point, and you lose your army. That would be a mistake. Because while you're doing this, you're probably once again going to neglect mechanics, because you're going to be preoccupied. This is a mistake. Like, you just have to respect, I would say. Respect your opponent more, because what you're walking into is you're walking into a group of tanks and bio behind a wall. They're behind SimCity, and you're going to lose every ultra. I guarantee it. If he just stands here with his bio and maybe moves a little bit back, you're going to lose every single ultra, and you're not even going to kill one tank. And you might not even kill any Marines if, you know, if he raises this depot or whatever. Your army's just going to wipe out, though. It's going to just die. So this, because also not only that, but your lings are also all dead, and your banelings are all gone. So this is just pure ultras trying to walk through a choke point. Now, does he have this base? He does not have this base. Fortunately for you, this dude does not expand very fast. But you're neglecting the most important thing about Zerg is when you have map control, you need to fucking scout the map. And that's where creep spread also comes into play. Because if you actually had really good creep spread, and again, I'm not trying to make you play like a fucking GM player right now, but if your priority right there when you just won this fight, it's totally like your priorities are all just jumbled up. If the priority when you won a fight over here and you crushed your opponent instead was to be like, okay, I have a moment to spare now because my opponent just lost a fight really bad, and now I have a second. I'm like, I get to breathe for a second, because now I don't have to be like, where is the attack gonna happen? Just stop yourself from getting like a bloodlust overpowering your brain, being like, I gotta kill him, he's gonna die. Just stop and be like, all right, let's spread some creep. Let's just spread that creep at least one tumor further, because I got a moment here, and then just scout. Give yourself a plan of attack before you attack. Like, your attack right now is just, it's like, basically, I'm gonna give you an example of like a character from like Diablo or some shit. Okay, you're like a fucking barbarian who's like, time to fucking whirlwind. You're like you can't even see where you're going. You're just fucking flailing in circles, like hoping that your opponent just gets hit by it and dies. It'd be like picking up a sledgehammer and just spinning around a lot and hoping that people run into it and die. Like, there's no plan of attack. It's just attack. You don't know where you're going. You don't know what you're going into. You don't know what composition he might be teching towards. It's just attacking. It might sound like I'm being a bit too critical here, but it's very true. Okay, and I think you're playing this game relatively well. So just try not to take it too negatively, I guess. But the overall plan here is very, very, very basic as to how the attack is going. It's literally as simple as he attacks, I kill, I attack. That's it. No other factors. And in doing that, when you say he attack, I defend, I attack, you neglect everything. The fucking, let's look at just queen energy. Okay, this queen's energy is better than I thought. 44, 44. This one's really high. This is 200 almost. Your overall saturation is better than it was before. That's been improved now during the last time from the last attack to this one. Your economy is looking, your macro and your economy is better than it was last time you had the attack. So you fixed that up to this point a bit, which is good. It's not perfect, but it's really hard to play perfect. But it's better than it was before. But your creep spread is looking pretty sad. I feel like your creep has barely moved since you started trying to creep spread in the beginning of the game. Like, you got scanned. Your creep tumor was like there at like 4 minutes. And then he scanned and killed it. And from like 4 minutes now to 15 minutes in the game, you've gone from here to here. Sure, he might have killed more creep as the game has gone on and you've replaced it here and there. But you've barely moved out. Like, you've barely covered your 4th base at 15 minutes. And your 5th base up here is also, the creep is barely in front of it. Like, your creep is covering very little of the map right now. So, the priority, again, when you have map control, I'm glad you're spending creep here. The priority is always gaining more control of more of the map. That's how Zerg wins. Zerg is like a fucking anaconda or like a snake that just like eats the fucking map. That's how Zerg works. And the less you consume the map, the harder it is to win the game. Because you're fucking clueless as to what your opponent could be doing. Think about it like this, okay? The less you know, the less of the map you control, the less of the map that you're aware of, the less likely you're going to win the game. That's how it works. Because you're going to have, like, you have much, your odds are increasing. The odds of you winning the game are way higher if you know what's going on the map throughout more of the map. Because you'll know, oh, look, he's pushing here, and I can set my army up and flank him and kill him. Or, oh, he's got a base over here, and I'm blocking it with creep, and he can't take it. Or, now I want to fight him here, and I have a really good mobility to my army, which is going to make my army engage like 20% more efficiently, because every unit just runs into his army way faster, and most of your units are melee, especially with the comp you're going for.
Mineral field depleted.
So 3-3 again is huge. It's important, especially against bio. Upgrades are like insanely important.
That mineral field stock. Don't spend
Because your army, okay, you're getting Carapace at least, which is wonderful. No melee though, yet. But if you're gonna get one or the other, Carapace is more important. You did this last time I watched you play as well. You go Viper, don't go Viper. Stop going Viper. For the love of God, stop making this unit. Please. Plasmid, I love you, man. But you make Vipers a lot, and you're making a unit that is not necessary. What's going to happen if you make Vipers is it adds another level of depth to your army that requires timing. You're basically this is what you're doing. You're reducing the power of your army, of the potential power of your army, by making your army now rely on a timing, like a timing based attack. You have to line it up really well for it to be worth it. Because these things are fucking expensive in gas, which is the most important thing. Gas is way more important for Zerg than minerals late game, because everything powerful for Zerg is gas. And this guy is not... The whole purpose of these units is to Blinding Cloud. I know that 100% that that's what you're going to be doing. You're going to be Blinding Clouding, and hopefully you're going to be Blinding Clouding the tanks. But if that's the purpose of them, I wish these were Broodlords instead. Because Broodlords can deal with tanks just as well as Vipers can, because you can make tanks kill each other. Make tanks kill the wrong unit a lot. And you can also force his army into a bad spot if you go Broodlords. And you can seriously make like 3 Broodlords instead of 3 Vipers if you really didn't want to go mass Broodlord. Like, it would be much easier too. You could just auto attack it than having to, because then it's not a timing based army. It's just a siege army. Like, you just move the Broodlords. And you're like, go ahead, Broodlords, and then if the bio's like stim and kill the Broodlords, you can be like, now my army engages your bio because you just stimmed really far forward and you're super exposed. Rather than being like, I gotta bob and weave my Vipers into his army and not lose them before I get my Blinding Clouds off, and then also at the exact same time engage as my Blinding Clouds initiate, because Blinding Cloud is a very short duration. I think Blinding Cloud Viper is totally not necessary with what you're doing right now. It's just making your game more complicated. See, this right here, what's happening is you're creating you're creating a more a problematic game for yourself, because your creep is like just not there. If your creep was way out across the map, this game has been long already, so you haven't had a lot of time to spread creep. If your creep is further out than it is now, these kind of attacks would not be surprising you. Like, you wouldn't have a hatchery being built or in fog that now dies. So, okay, like, this game now has been, your economy now has been reduced to about 1 base economy, because you have 4 patches here and you have 4 patches here, which is the equivalent of like 1 base. And the reason why this happened is because you don't have map awareness. Because you've spent too much of the game focusing on the wrong thing, which is just being aggressive when you shouldn't be. And yeah, it's I'm trying to stress this point because it's so fucking important. It's so important. And yeah, it's if there's anything to take away from this game, that's it. That's focus on map control to the biggest extent of that, which is having your creep control more of the map. That is so important. Because you just lost... What just happened was, in the course of like 1 minute, this guy killed this base because you have very little vision here. And he wiped out this base, so you have very little time to react to him doing this. And then when you did react to this, he set up a new army over here, which killed not only this base, which is completely exposed, but he had very little distance to go from here to here. And he just wiped out your new economy. So now your economy is going to effectively be worse than your opponent by a bit. And this is how things start turning around for your opponent and letting them win the game. Okay, so we're gonna back this up again. This is why I want you not to go Broodlords. Or I mean, this is why I want you not to go Viper. It's all about the proper way to fight your opponent. If you're gonna go for Viper, is your Viper lead the fight, and if he's right here, okay, you have to first of all scout where he is for Vipers to be effective. But if he's right here, okay, if I had one Ling or something go forward and go, oh look, there he is. Like I just got shot by a tank and I see a second tank. Whatever. You know he's here. Your Vipers should be like coming up right here. And the Vipers fly in. They would be flying in like right. First of all, you would actually group your army a little bit better than it is. Right now you have a shitload of Lings leading way sooner than the Ultras are going to go in. If you just grouped your army up a little bit better right here and waited just for a second, and then right as you say, right here, because you know he's right here, because you scouted with the unit, you go, ground army, attack. And right as your ground army attacks, your Vipers are already like right here. And you say, Vipers, blinding cloud, blinding cloud, blinding cloud. And then as soon as you attack, the tanks, right as they were about to fire, blinding clouds hit them. That's how you have to use a Viper. And if you don't use a Viper like that, they are such a waste of a unit. If you just attack into like a thin line and let you get shot a shitload before you blinding cloud, then Vipers are now effectively crappy units. That's why I don't want to use Viper, because it's actually like way too... It's like unnecessary for this kind of a composition. You don't need them at all. Like it's not necessary at all. We'll see how much damage goes out of this army before blinding clouds go off. So you've lost all the Ling and the potential Bane Ling. There's like 6 Banes over here. But you've lost all the Ling, and you've also lost 2 Ultras, and the Vipers still have not casted a Blinding Cloud yet. What this means now is if you were to Blinding Cloud this guy, okay? And if this guy is a decent Terran player, and he had Medivacs here. He doesn't have Medivacs for some reason. But if all he has to do in this kind of a situation is he's already killed all the units that you have that can run his army down. He could actually just stim pack and stutter step backwards and kill your entire army. You have 3 Hydras and soon to be 10 Ultras, because 2 of them are literally about to die. He could actually just attack back up, like just stutter all the way back here, going back to his base, and your Vipers will do nothing. And eventually you get to a point where you bleed out and you have to turn around and go home and remake a new army again and do it again. It's just, it's not a good comp. Like, instead of Vipers, I'm going to pause it one more time because I really have to say this. I feel like, because we just watched that. instead of making Vipers, which is 9 supply, I would actually rather you make 18 Zerglings or 1 Ultra and 6 Lings, the same supply worth of units. And instead of using the gas on the Viper, make more Banelings. Make like another like 16 Banelings or something instead of 3 Viper. And then just scout where his army is. Don't, like, I think your biggest problem is you're so impatient with how you fight things. Just fucking take a second to scout with 1 Zergling and go, there he is. And as soon as you find him, just grab like half your fucking army and run around the other side. And then have half your army where it still is now. And then once your army is set up on both sides, then attack him together, like slam into him. And you don't even have to just do 1 Zergling. You could do, instead of using Vipers, make a couple Overseers that make Changelings that walk around the map. When you want to know where I want to attack, like, do I want to attack right now? Let's make a Changeling and walk there. You know what I'm saying? Like, your fight would have actually been more efficient if you just split your army in twos, into 2 parts, and flanked him, rather than trying to go for Blinding Clouds. And it would be more efficient like almost every time with this kind of a composition. It's like right now, again, we're adding complications to this army. The Vipers are not super simple to use units. They require timing like we just talked about, and the Vipers are doing nothing in this fight. That was another opportunity right there to Blinding Cloud and take a way better fight. But at this point, you've already lost a lot of your army. You might still just win the game right now. But it was sloppy as shit. Okay, and then at this point again, you decided to approach and break his 3rd base, which is totally fine. But in terms of like having the game go from here, a good thing you could have done would have been like I really want to grind in the map control aspect into you, because like right now there is absolutely no reason to attack his main base. So these units, for the love of God, I hope they turn around. If you were to do anything with these units right now, I would say you should run them all currently back to your creep a little bit while you like mostly focus on killing this bio or just getting rid of it. And as soon as you have, you know, nothing happening in your base that's fucking you up, because you've effectively let yourself become kind of all in here. You're out of money. You're still winning the game because your army beat his, but you're out of money and you're out of economy. Like, you're not mining anything really right now. Look at the income. The income is that. This is about to die. Your income is literally going to just be this. So if you just at this point in the game focus on getting your base under control again, just take a couple expansions again and resaturate this base with these drones. Just focus on getting your shit under control. Regroup your army and attack his expansion. That is the best thing you could do right now, because if you killed this base, killing this base was, killing a command center is fine, but look at the base. It's like mined out anyways. It's so low on minerals. He would have the shittiest mining efficiency here ever. Look at his main. It's gone. Look at his natural. It's pretty much mined out. It's even worse than this base. One of these patches has like 30. One of them has like 100. It's like 200, 300, 300, and 100, or 90. Or 30, sorry. And the gases are mining out too. At this point, he's going to have very little income out of his main and natural. And you should expect that too. Even if you don't see this, this is your vision. You don't even see his economy right now. You know there's a potential that could be more. Like, because, oh, look at the minimap. It's like, it's got a lot. You got to expect that by 17 minutes, this guy's going to be mined out of his main and natural, because you're doing the exact same thing. You're mining out as well. So if you just don't let him expand further and don't bleed your army out in the process of trying to break the main so badly, even if you don't kill his base, he still loses the game because he runs out of money. I really want you to turn around with this army. Okay, I'm going to pause it one more time because I'm just going to explain a scenario here that could totally happen if you bleed out over and over. If you get way too... If you, as the Zerg player right now, get way too tunnel visioned on being like, attack the main base! And this guy has a lot of tanks, which he does, and he keeps breaking the ramp. Or sorry, you try to keep breaking the ramp, and he keeps just demolishing your army in a choke point. What if he just lifts off these bases and takes new bases, and now... And at the same time, he like has another drop come over here and he kills your base again. Just one drop. Or kills some drones. You actually cost inefficiently try to keep breaking a a point in the map that is not necessary, and then you effectively throw the game. I really want you to stop using Vipers. It's such a higher skill level unit that is not necessary right now. Alright, I have to pause it one more time and say something. Okay, I know I paused it a lot, but I'm really trying to break down everything here. Another thing that would be really good is, what is the one weakness of this build, especially if you're in a lower league? I'm going to tell you right now, it's siege tanks. You know, I feel like if you're someone who's in Diamond League, or maybe even low Masters, you're not going to play a lot of Terrans, or anything below that. You're not going to play a lot of Terrans that go, oh look, he's going Ultralisk. I'm going to snipe them with Ghost and micro my units. That's not going to happen. It's like so unlikely to happen. Okay? Like very little people at this rating will go Ghost. They're going to go Tank because Tank is a unit that he literally sieges up and just fucking doesn't even touch anymore. And the Tank just beats ass. That does happen though? Okay. I'll get to that in a second, alright? I'm trying to explain some fucking logic here. 1 second. Yes, it does. It does happen, though. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna re-say what I said. A player who goes Ghost in a lower league is not going to be able to micro these motherfucking Ghosts like a top-level player. If I see someone who is in a low league going Ghost, I will probably kill these Ghosts with Banelings. I would be 100% confident that I could kill a guy going Ghost with Baneling. That's my point. Like it's not gonna be some sick micro as fuck guy going Ghost. Okay, it's probably not gonna happen. So here's what I'm trying to say. Okay, if you're going Ultralisk and your opponent is going Siege Tank, if you just start adopting the mentality of making a Spire, there's two ways you could go about doing this and killing a player who plays like this. Number one is, instead of just really just being hard-headed with Ultras and being like, you know what, I'm just going to fucking kill you with Ultras because I want to make Ultras. That's what I'm doing. Ultras are fine, okay? But once the tank count gets up to like double-digit numbers, which is not currently, but if it keeps going at the rate it is, where units keep bleeding out and the tanks don't die, it could totally become that. If you start fighting tanks in equivalent, if not more tanks than there are Ultras on the map, it's going to become really bad for Ultras. It's like trying to play rock, paper, scissors, and you're saying, I'm going to use paper, and I'm going to beat the shit out of your scissors. Because that is what StarCraft is. It is a game of hard counters. And a fucking tank is a hard counter to an Ultralisk when there's a lot of them. So stop making Ultras when your opponent... If your opponent has a lot of tanks, and instead you could do something like go, oh shit, my opponent has a shitload of siege tanks. How about I just make like 8 Broodlords? Because guess what? If tanks are scissors and Ultras are paper, well, a Broodlord army is a fucking rock, which can now counter the siege tank army. Easy peasy. Like, just swapping between your tech is the biggest advantage for Zerg in hive tech scenario, like late game hive tech scenarios. Because if my opponent goes mass siege tank, like I'm going ultras currently, and then now I go, oh shit, I can't really break the Terran anymore because he's got mass siege tank, and I just make broodlords. I now break the siege tanks really easy, and then now let's say, oh shit, I went broodlords, and now the Terran went mass Viking. What if I just go back into Ultralisk? Have you guys ever seen what it looks like when like 20 like Vikings try to land on the ground, and you have like 10 ultras running through it? Have you guys ever seen that? I can show you what it looks like. This is what it looks like right here, okay? Get ready. This is what it looks like when Vikings try to land and fight in Ultralisk. Okay? Get the fuck out of my way, bitch! Don't give a shit! That's what happens when you got Vikings landing against Ultras. Okay? That's how it goes. Alright, let's keep going. Alright. So we'll see what goes on here. So this is what I kind of see happening in this fight. This is what I'm gonna assume is gonna happen. And this is what I don't want to happen. What I think is gonna happen is he's gonna attack you with the bio and he's gonna back up. And while he backs up, your ultras, some of them are gonna trickle off and chase the bio, and a lot of them are gonna get bottlenecked and choked up on the planetary fortress here. And the planetary fortress might die, but if this army dies, you could 100% lose this game. Because guess what? The economy here for Zerg is not good anymore. If the Terran player actually just rotates SCVs to his other bases, which he's taking currently, he's going back on a 2-base economy right now. And if this army dies, you're not really, there's not really going to be a follow-up army that just gets rebuilt right away. Like, the economy is now bad for Zerg. We're on 1-base economy for Zerg at the moment. Like, this base is literally mining out right now. So this army is very, very important. So I hope this doesn't attack this location. Like, there's better things you could do. We'll see how it goes. Terran just took supply lead. Because the Ultras, although you did kill the Planetary, and you even got out with some of the Ultra, that was a effectively bad fight for you. Because you killed, I think, like 1 tank. Like, look at what the fight is before. Okay, we'll do that really quickly, actually. Before this fight happens, we have a total of... See it right when it starts. Before the fight starts, we have a total of 11 tanks. This is double-digit tanks now. This is scary. Versus 9 ultras. Guys, do you know how hard a tank hits an ultra? Even though the tanks... You might even be like, what the fuck? These ultras are 2-2. I wish they were 3-3. But these ultras are 2-2. And these tanks are 0-0. It doesn't fucking matter, man. A tank will hit a 2-2 ultra. A tank will hit it for fucking 64 damage. 64! That's a shitload of damage. And it also splashes. An ultra has 500 health, guys. And if he has 11 tanks, it only takes, what, like 8 hits to kill an ultra at this point? Something like that. So, these ultras will explode rather quickly. 3 ultras just died when 1 tank died. And the 2 of these tanks are not even... dude, he doesn't even have 2 of these tanks sieged in the back. And he doesn't even have 3 of these tanks in the fight. So you're actually not even fighting 11 tanks. You're fighting 6 tanks. Because he has 5 tanks out of the fight right now. Okay, now this tank shot once. But now, at the end of the fight, he rebuilt a tank. Because a tank died, and he's still building units. Out of his factories and stuff. But now we have 11 tanks versus 5 ultras. StarCraft 2 is a game of hard counters, and you can't expect to beat your hard counter with the wrong unit. It's similar to being like, I'm gonna beat Protoss with roaches all day. It doesn't matter. Or like it'd be like going. You got to think about siege tanks like they're immortals as well. Like, are you gonna go mass Ultralisk against immortals? Probably not. Because have you guys ever seen what that fight looks like? It's terrible for the Ultralisk. But it's like the exact same thing when the Terran gets a lot of tanks. Yeah, dude, these Vipers are fucking you up, man. So bad. Now he's about to have 13 tanks. I'm gonna really focus on the Vipers right here and watch how they engage. Again, the only way you really make Vipers work with an engage is if you scout first as to where your opponent is with like a Changeling is perfect, or an Overseer. Just sack an Overseer. Something. You need something to fucking scout where his army is currently set up at. So it's not just like you're coming blindly into a fight and being like, oh, let's figure it out as we go. Something would be great. Just something would be great. And if you had Changeling, like a Changeling or something like that in this army, just chilling, and let's say one Marine Changeling was sitting right here, and you're like, oh, look at the tank spread. You could bring the Vipers up like right here and be like, Blinding Cloud, Blinding Cloud, Blinding Cloud, Blinding Cloud, Blinding Cloud, Blinding Cloud. Like you could try and cast a bunch of Blinding Clouds if you really wanted to. Or, what if you did this? What if you just were like, your Vipers were here and you just abducted all the tanks as his bio engaged your Ultras and you just killed the command center or some shit. You know, like, his tanks are already spread out enough as it is where it's going to make Blinding Cloud less effective. Or even better, you could actually have a Changeling here and you could take more of a patient fight, and your Vipers could be here. Your army could be here with your Viper, and you could just abduct the tanks single file, like in the spread out line that they're in. And you don't even have to fight the bio. You don't even have to chase the bio. If these Marines stim forward, they all run forward like, fucking shoot the Ultras. They're just shooting the Ultras for like 2 seconds. That'll do less damage than getting shot by 2 tanks one time for 1 second. Like, these Marines are, it's like you're the fucking Hulk on an Ultra versus a Marine, and he's like tickling you. It would be better if you had level 3 armor, because his Marines actually will do 3 damage a shot to you right now instead of 2 damage. So the damage will be there a little bit, but if all these Marines stem forward and he shoots you, it's actually, you're going to take less damage just running away and being like, cool, I killed the tank with an abduct, and I just backed up, even though your Marines are trying to poke forward on my Ultras. I'll just back up. You're going to take less damage than if you were to chase the Marines into the tanks and watch like fucking 3 Ultras just go to tanks shooting the shit out of you. And then now you're forced into a fight, because even if at that point you then decide, I'm going to retreat, the tanks are going to shoot you again as you run away. So you have to take the fight then, or else it's going to be really just inefficient for you. Like, the real damage of this army is 100% the siege tank, even though they're 0-0 against your composition. So you got to keep in mind too, Blinding Cloud has a 4-second, or sorry, wrong spell. It's actually 6 seconds. My bad. It's a 6-second duration. 6 seconds goes by relatively fast in StarCraft 2. And like right now, if you were to, you just cast this one Blinding Cloud in these front 2 tanks. If you attacked right now, guaranteed your army is going to get spread out among the depot, the gas, some of the SCVs, the command center. A bit of your army is going to get like just stuck on these buildings, and the other part of your army that gets shot and gets just aggroed by some of your army will get shot, and there is a, if you guys don't know how this works, do you guys know what aggro is? If this army was on stop, okay? The army's on stop command. Let's just pretend this army's on stop. And one Marine shoots this Ultra. This whole army is not going to go, get him! Only the direct units around the vicinity of the one Ultra, its aggro range, is going to move with it. So like probably those units, it'd be like 3 Ultras and like, or 4 Ultras and a Hydra, would go with the first Ultra that got shot on the side of the army, and they would also go. Same thing if you shot like this Hydra in the back, like this group of units would go with it, or like this group of units right here would walk with this Hydra to attack the Marine that's attacking it, and the rest of them would just sit there. So if these units, when they're attacking this building, Like if they attack move down here, and some of them get stuck on the gas and whatever, the shit up here, and these units that go down within range to get shot by his units, it will mean that the Zerg army is going to effectively fight. Like 50% is going to engage, and as soon as this Terran army kills 50% of the army, it'll probably move forward and start fighting the other 50% of the army. Or by then, when 50% of the army dies, this base is also dead, and then it goes forward again. But yeah, it's the aggro is how it works. And look at that one blinding cloud. You casted a blinding cloud, and by the time you get there, because you mistimed it, it's gonna be off by the time you're in range now. You just recasted a new one, but like that first blinding cloud did effectively nothing. I just really, you love Vipers. I fucking hate that you love Vipers, because it's like you're making the difficult, like if the difficulty of Ling Bane Ultra is a 3 out of 10, it's literally as simple as flank him and attack him. Like get a flank going on with it and attack. And all you gotta do is time it to where both sides of the army engage roughly around the same time. So it's not like one side fights and by the time it's dead, the other side is now coming in to fight. You just need it to be decently timed so both sides engage simultaneously on both sides of the guy's army. It's like a level 3 out of 10 difficulty. Adding in Vipers and adding in a whole other concept of now you also need to flank, because you do need to flank with this army. Flanking is so important with Ultras, because if you engage with surface area like this is what happens. Some of your shit doesn't even help during the fight. Adding in Vipers to the army makes the difficulty go from like a 3 to like a 7. Because now, not only do you have to also do flanking and positioning, but now you also have a whole timing element that didn't even exist before. Because the only way you're going to get full benefit out of your army is if right as your army with its flank is coming in from both sides, you are that exact point in time throwing blinding clouds down. So you get maximum benefit, maximum like use out of the blinding clouds. And the way this is going, where it's like coming from one angle and you just blinding cloud, like the one super early, and now you're doing it again as you engage. It's okay, but it's not ideally how you want to fight with this army. And yeah, this game has been put into another all-in scenario because it's now becoming a base trade because there's no units back at home defending at the moment. There should be soon because you have like a lot of things in production, but it's becoming a weird scenario again. It was pretty nice Viper usage though. Okay, so I'm not saying that Viper is like the worst unit ever. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is he's making the build for himself way harder than it has to be. I feel like most people don't appreciate a Broodlord, a Spire Broodlord. Spire unit is as in the Broodlord. Because if instead of having like 6 Vipers that have to like time these blinding clouds all the time and just like you moving forward. If you made like 6 Broodlords instead, and you just moved your Broodlords forward, and you just watched, you just literally just have like 10 APM and you watch it. You're like, okay, Broodlords attack. Have you guys ever seen what it looks like when a Broodlord fights like a shitload of tanks? And on top of that, when he tries to run bio at the Broodlords. Because this guy did not have a lot of bio, by the way. His bio was like 20 Marines. His bio was like 20 Marines. If he has like 12 tanks and 20 Marines, if you shoot one round of Broodlings at those Marines, you might kill like 1 or maybe 2 Marines because Broodlords are projectile-based units and they do overkill, which means that even if it only takes 3 Broodlords to kill a Marine, 8 Broodlords might shoot a Marine and still kill it. Projectile, that's how projectiles work in StarCraft. But even though if there's overkill in a Marine, it will still spawn Broodlings for every Broodlord that's shot. Now, if you have 10 Broodlords shooting 20 Marines, and let's say 2 Marines died from the Broodlords, now 20 Broodlings spawn. because you have 10 broodlings. They all have 10 broodlords, and they all have 2 broodlings each. So now 20 broodlings, they all spawn around the Marines. Guess what's going to happen when 12 tanks shoot 20 broodlings that are currently just meleeing a Marine? A shitload of Marines are going to go just explode to tanks shooting them. All the broodlings will die, sure, but guess what's also going to die? All the fucking Marines that are there. And if 10 broodlords once again shoot another round of broodlings, it's going to happen again and again and again. Like, it's going to just ridiculously annihilate the Marine army. And then, what are the tanks going to do when all the Marines are dead? Nothing. They're just going to die. They're all just going to die. And you're going to take this fight that's like, oh, well, I just lost like 200 resources in total during the fight. And Terran lost like 5,000. Like, it's going to just be very, very ridiculously one-sided. And Broodlords are way easier to micro, by the way, than Viper. It's like a win-win. Any Zerg out there that plays against Terran that wants to get Grandmaster level, or at least like Masters 1, I guarantee you will get that if you master the art of macroing and controlling the map. And then once if the game hasn't ended by Hive Tech, you just swap tech between Ultra, Broodlord, Ultra, Broodlord, Ultra, Broodlord. And you just do whatever your opponent has prepared, and you do the opposite. If they prepared for Broodlords, you go Ultras. You fight him. And then let's say the game isn't over. Now he prepares for Ultra. You go Broodlord. Now he prepares for Broodlord. You go Ultra. You just swap your tech. Because Zerg can make an army from no army to maxed way faster than Terran can make an army and swap it. Terran has to make it in cycles. Zerg can make it all at once. Ghost, you know what's better than a Viper? An Infestor. Fungal the Ghost. Or just make Banelings. If you really don't like Infestors, just make Ling Bane. And be like, hey, Ghost, come and snipe me. Just blow them up, Banelings. These are all A-move style compositions. Like, they're not difficult. Infestors are a bit more difficult. But, Broodlord and Ultra are literally A-move. The way I'm telling you guys to use them. For, you know, that kind of a thing. Okay. So, anyways, that's weird. My stream says I don't know. Whatever. Now, if I was playing this game, I would say this is a perfect location to attack, because I love that your creep was here. Well done, by the way. You got your creep to his 4th base. That's amazing. I'm glad that you focused on that. That's definitely, I'm going to give you positive reinforcement on your creep in that location, because if you do that all over the map, that's how you fuck Terran over the most. I think your scouting, though, and your patience, your decision making is definitely lacking here, because you keep taking these fights in locations that are not the best location to fight at. Because here's why. If you fight a Terran, like, you will still probably win this fight, okay? So don't think that just because you're going to win the fight, it means that this was the better location to attack at. Here's what I'm trying to say. You did not scout this location before you fought it. You know that he has, like, what I mean by that is you don't know exactly what he has here. What if he had, like, 4 tanks behind the mineral line? Just like 4 tanks back here. Like, tank, 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 tank. What would happen is his tanks would actually kill all of your units very easily while he repairs a planetary. And I guarantee he would hold it if he had that. He only has 1 tank, and for some reason it's also in the front of the planetary, not behind it. So you will kill this, but look up here. You even saw this with the creep tour. You know he has a base here. He has an orbital command up here. This is a much more vulnerable base than this base. And if you were to, let's say, attack this planetary, and there would be like a few tanks here that killed your army, and this base was untouched, you would give him a free 2 bases because you just threw an army away on a base that shouldn't have been attacked first. Meanwhile, he's just mining up here hunky-dory, just for free. Like, the way you always want to do it is you always want to attack at the weakest location possible. Every time. You don't want to attack at the location your opponent is going to have the highest chance of defending. You want to attack the weakest location possible. And yeah, that's super important. And GG. So you still won that game, but it was a lot. Yeah, like you said, you did say this before you gave it to me. Like a lot of things I can improve upon here. There are definitely a lot of things you can improve upon there, and yeah, man. Overall, I feel like you have a few aspects of your play are not bad, like your opener, like your overall general build in the start of the game is not bad. You generate a shitload of money really fast, but the decision making after that and the spending of the money is definitely a problem for you. So go back and do everything I was talking about with like the whole macro hatch placement and stuff like that. And if you want one more, I'll give you one little recap here on that. You go 3 bases like you did when your natural, or sorry, when your third base is like half saturation, you take a third base. Jesus. When your third base is half saturation, you take a macro hatch, and then you'll make lings to defend drops and shit. And then as soon as you start a 4th base, you take a second macro hatch, and you can rotate queens around like we talked about. It's gonna increase your macro so much more. And then the second thing I would love for you to do is just focus 100% of your time on spending your money and spreading your creep. Like macro and mechanics. That's what 100% what I want you to do. Don't even fucking counterattack your opponent. Just do that. And if you can get to a point where you play games and you're like, oh, well, I have but every time my opponent attacks me, my army is fucking huge. Like, their armies are so small and I just crush them. That's great. That means you're doing it good. That means you're properly doing it, because the way this guy was attacking you, you could have had armies that were so much bigger than what you had. This guy's build order was not the greatest, because his army was comparable to yours when you had 3,000 minerals in the bank. So if you fix your macro up a bit, your armies will just be like it's swarming. It's like fucking Starship Troopers. Like you just swarm his ass and everything dies. You're like, okay, that was easy. And then when you have map control, just like expand upon that. Take more map control. Spread the fucking creep. Spread the creep. More. And then scout for like his bases that are not the ones he already has. I feel like the biggest thing you do that's bad is you get in this like tunnel vision mode of, I gotta break what he already has. Fuck it. Just let him have it. If he's got 3 bases and you're on 4 bases, let him have it. You're still winning the game. That does mean you're winning the game. If you're 1 base above your opponent, just let him have it until you max out, and then you can try to break him when you have like ridiculous amounts of like a lead. Only deny bases that are greedy for your opponent. Like if you're on 4 bases and now you see your opponent is taking a 4th base, fucking attack the 4th base. That's fine. But if you're on 4 bases and he's on 3 bases, or if you're on 5 bases and he's on 3 bases, and you're only at like 110 supply, stop attacking his 3rd base, because you're just going to keep throwing army away. And then finally, the last thing, I would love it if you just used Broodlords instead of Viper, or you don't have to use Broodlords. If you really don't like Broodlords, you don't have to use them. If you don't want to use Broodlords, stop using Viper. There's so many other options you could do that are like 10 times better than how you're trying to do it with just Blinding Clouds. Here's 2 examples. One example, use a fucking Overseer and send changelings into his base. Okay? Just send changelings into his base and on his army. It doesn't have to just be like 1 changeling and you're done. You can make 5 Overseers and drop like 10 fucking changelings all at once and just be like throwing them everywhere. Send them everywhere. And he's probably not going to catch all of them. There's a very high chance you're going to get changelings here and there into his army that are going to show you where he is. And when you see it, If your macro is now good and you're maxing out, flank and attack. Like have two, like come in from multiple angles and jump on the tanks with Lings and Banes and Ultras and shit. And even if you take a fight where, you know, he might kill the army, if you reset a tank count, if you reset his tanks with like Lings are jumping all over the tanks and Lings are making the tanks blow themselves up and shit like that, and you just remax again and you do it again. If you were macroing has been good enough at this point, you will crush your opponent easy because you'll just overpower them because you'll have so much more than they do and you'll just break the army and then you'll kill them. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. It's way easier to do this because you'll be doing these timings way faster than doing little irrelevant things like generating energy on Viper, building Vipers first of all, and then having them consume energy to get up really high, and then flying them over with your army, and then getting ready to take a fight. And then when you do take a fight, you start trying to micro the Vipers and blinding clouding everything. Like, it's just so unnecessary. It's really unnecessary. Like, if you were going to go Roach Hydra, I would say more necessary then. But you're going Ultra. You don't need it. You're doing melee-based compositions, and getting your Lings up into his face and blowing his own tanks up because you're on his units entirely is totally fine. You can actually attack him with Ling Bane Ultra, blow up most of his army, and then let's say you lost your entire army. You could remake a new army faster than he could replace the tanks that he lost. If you took a decent angle. And the way you could take a decent angle is by scouting with Changelings. And I would love it if you tried Broodlords. Because you actually should not be going mass Ultra against someone who's going mass tank. And here's another option. Fuck it. Guess what? If your opponent's actually going mass tanks like that, and you're like, no, I'm going Ultras, and that's final. I'm just going Ultras. You know what would be great? Is if you actually made, like, instead of, 6 Vipers, which take 3 supply each, which is, it's 18 supply. 6 Vipers is 18 supply. Could you imagine if you made 9 Infestors, which is 18 supply, and you burrowed them, and while they were burrowed, you had Neural Parasite upgraded, and the way you took the fight was you engage with the army, and as soon as you engage with the army, you just Neural Parasite every tank, as if you were casting Blinding Clouds on every tank. You just Neural Parasite instead. It's just a different spell. Instead of casting Blinding Clouds on every tank, now you're just microing your Neural Parasite on every tank. And then guess what happens? You rip his own fucking tanks out of his army and add them to yours, and now his own tanks turn their gun around and start shooting his other tanks. And his front line that you now neuraled start killing his back line while your Ling Ultra gets on top of it as well, and his whole army just dies. And then your Ultra Ling can just kill the neural tanks! It would be like fucking 10 times better than choosing Blinding Cloud. And it's less micro required too. Because you don't have to time it as much. You can just walk your Infestors into your army with it, like behind your Ultra front line, and then just be like, neural, 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 neural. And it would be totally good. There's a lot of options better than Viper. Vipers, I swear, I just hope at some point in time you stop using Vipers the way you're using them. Vipers are great units at the right time. But they're not great units when you're going Mass Viper with Ultra Bane Ling and trying to Blinding Cloud out his Siege, because you're making the strategy way harder than it has to be. If you were someone who was like rank 20 GM and you could handle the multitasking required in terms of your base along with microing this army, and you had the timing down amazing, you would be taking good fights. I would not argue with you in the slightest. I'm not telling you that Ultra Bane Ling Viper is a shitty comp by itself. It's fine, but the difficulty required to execute it properly is higher than you are at the moment. Just throwing that out there. You have to balance timing plus positioning perfectly to make that composition good, and you have not done it once, which means your army is now way weaker than it should be. So stop using Vipers. Just do yourself a favor and come back to that composition later if you really love it that much, and use something easier that's stronger, and you'll fucking have so much more success in your games. I hope that makes sense. I hope it wasn't too harsh. But guys, yeah. I feel like I might have got a little harsh there at the end. But either way, guys, that's going to do it for this replay analysis. Thank you for watching. And yeah, man. Plasmid, shout out to you. So all things aside, you are playing pretty well. I'm just trying to be really critical on you because, You know, the more critical I am, the faster you can improve. And I know you do want to improve because you do multiple of these. So hopefully you take my advice without taking offense to anything I say. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching. I will see you next time on another replay analysis. So until then, have a good one. And I'll see you guys later. Peace. Alright, that's the end of the YouTube video, boys.